Hey, welcome back to Coffee and One Thing, where today we're talking about appraisals and what is a home appraisal with my good friend Wes McDaniel, who I've known for some time. I think
20 some years.
I think since Brian was 9. Yeah, that was when I remember meeting you. We are motivated and caffeinated, or caffeinated and motivated today. Our coffee this month is Kona,
Gold
which
coffee?
is Elaine's favorite. Right?
Yeah.
It's your favorite? Yeah. Okay.
It's a milder Kona coffee. So if you like Kona coffee but it's too strong, that's a good one.
Never had Kona coffee. Had Kona beer.
That's a whole nother show.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother show.
Next year.
Wes works, his company's name is RealMetricsAZ, and he's an appraiser, licensed appraiser. I think you've been doing that ever since I've known you, right?
Yeah. I've been an appraiser for going on 37 years.
Okay.
Wow.
So can you tell us a little bit how you got into the home appraisal business? And
Absolutely. Like a lot of appraisers I know, it was a family affair.
Yeah.
My dad was an appraiser. My son, Brian, who you referenced, is an appraiser as well. He's training with me right now. But essentially, I grew up in my dad's appraisal office. My first paid job was to essentially compile comp books, comparables, sales that from the MLS. They came 3 to a page, and my brother and I were assigned for, I think, 25 cents an hour or something obscenely low by today's standards.
you got to earn it.
That's right. Teaching us the value of hard work.
That's right.
But we'd have to cut those 3 out and paste them into books, and then he had a row of books in his back seat where he would essentially, whatever part of town he was in, he would pick up his comp book and have his comps ready in the back seat.
So you had to do things the old style way.
Makes you thankful for technology.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's well, like my mom was a realtor when I was a kid, and to find out what houses were listed, you had to go to the office and look in the book.
The book was everything.
It's like, yeah. I mean, it's just crazy to think about
In this
how
market,
things
the
have
book
changed.
would be way too old.
The book is out of date by the time.
By the time it prints.
Yeah.
Right.
That's amazing. That's cool.
So can you tell us what a home appraisal is?
Yeah, so in its most basic form, it's an opinion of value, and I think that's an important distinction to make. It's ultimately what a house sells for is what it's worth to that buyer and that seller.
Right.
But most of the time, it's a lender. In your context, in real estate sales, it's a lender who wants that appraisal, who is my client, and they want to be assured that the property is worth at least as much as how much they're lending, and of course with down payments, it's going to probably be worth a lot more than that. But it is that it's an opinion. It's a studied opinion. It's a one that you make with a lot of data, and essentially it's a licensed profession. So we have to be able to back up what we're saying, which is probably the part that people don't see. They realtors and sellers, they see the 20 minutes, 30 minutes that we're at a 1,500 foot ranch, and think, well, that appraisal that only took 20 minutes. Well, that's part of it. Yeah, that's the smallest part of it, and so most of it is that research before with the inspection and the writing of the report that essentially supports that opinion.
Yeah, I always try to tell them it's like an iceberg.
Right.
What you see
Isn't
really the whole picture.
Small part.
Yeah.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's different than a home inspection, right?
Yeah, and that's a pretty common misconception. I can't count the number of times I go in the process of a purchase. We're typically there after the Binzer has gone through. Essentially they kind of know that it's ready to go forward. Mm-hmm. Those things have been worked out. The home inspector has likely been there almost in most cases, but the seller, if they're there, will say, especially when it takes me about 20 minutes at a 1,800 square foot house to see everything I need to see. They say, well, that's odd that you're done. The last inspector was here last week and took 3 hours. And that's where I try to educate sellers to say, yeah, it's an entirely different discipline. We're looking at different things. The assumption in an appraisal is that everything's in working order unless I see something to the contrary. And so I do take longer when I see problems. But when I don't, then it takes a lot less time, and certainly less time than an inspection, where the goal is to check all those mechanicals, to look at things deeper. Whereas I can assume as an appraiser that unless I see a problem, that it works.
Yeah. If it isn't broke, don't fix it.
Can you do a quick overview of, so you arrive at a property, and what's your process? What do you look for?
And it's a good point about my process, because I in appraiser groups on Facebook, and so I kind of see other approaches. Mine is to see the exterior of the house first. And so and that's one of the big debates in appraisal, inside baseball kind of stuff. But, well, I'm an inside first, so I'm outside. I'm an outside first guy. I like to go, from the general to the more specific. If for no other reason, because I'm going to be sketching that property, and so it helps me to have drawn my sketch, measured the outside of the property before I go in and start filling in the rooms. So to me, it just makes more sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
So. But that's my approach at the house, and what I try to do is set up the expectation and sellers and on purchases, and then just owners on refis, because I do appraisals for both. Is that about half of people feel like they need to play the realtor and show me through the house.
Yeah.
But that's and I'm sure there's some appraisers that allow that and maybe even encourage it. For me, I like to take, and I tell the owners this, is take that first pass through the house where I'm taking notes, taking pictures, essentially kind of head down, trying to make sure I get all the information that I need, and then I assure them that I won't hesitate at the end. We'll take as much time as you need to talk about all the improvements, the features you want to highlight. But for me, if I don't do those things first, then I know where kind of the required things that I need to record. Then I love to talk. I could keep visiting with them, but then I run the risk, and this is just for me. Right. I run the risk of missing something that I should have seen because I'm not following.
Because you're not in your routine.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That'd be me. There was a fourth bedroom?
Right. Well, and that can't, and maybe I shouldn't disclose this, but there's been a few times when I get back and I realize I've got that half bath on my sketch, but I don't have a picture of it, and so many times I've gone back and said, I'm really sorry, but I need to go back in. And there's sometimes when I know I've seen that half bath, and just ask them to text me a picture of that half bath, so I have it for the report.
Well, when you got a routine, you like to stick to that.
Oh,
routine.
yeah, it saves me from getting. And even then, the first thing I do when I get to the car, when I think I'm done, is review. For me, it's pictures more than anything else. It's just review my sketch against the pictures and make sure before I leave the property, 98% of the time, I've got everything I need.
Yeah. Good. So you measure the exterior of the house?
I do. Maricopa County is good for us because at least the assessor has a sketch to start with. So in Maricopa County, which is the only county that I work in Arizona that does this, I take that sketch with me, and then I spot check it. And as you guys can probably, you're nodding like you've seen those sketches.
More times than not, it's okay.
They're very close. And
depending on what they might have done to the house later.
And that's
an older home.
That's why you spot check, why you make sure that what you expect to see is what you actually see. But so I'll measure from scratch in the other counties and spot check in Maricopa.
So are you a tape measure kind of guy, or are you one of those digital?
I'm agnostic.
I like it.
That's another debate.
Yeah, I know.
Another debate in the appraisal world. But if when somebody sees me at the door, I've got a tape measure on my pocket. I've got a digital in my back pocket. And I've got an iPad Pro, which has a measure feature that is fairly accurate.
You're not an either or, you're a both and.
I am. Yeah. And the other, in the summer here, although in many cases the laser seems to be the best, the fastest and accurate.
And more accurate, yeah.
But because of the sunny skies, I've got the red visor. I guess I should have brought that as a like vision. So you can see that laser in full sunlight for about 100 feet.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
So it helps out.
I'm sure a custom home gets trickier.
Yeah, and that's
right?
it does, and then angles that are not 90-degree angles, circles, all those kinds of things. So angle meters that we can use when necessary.
Nice.
Wow.
But that's another thing. We're in Maricopa County that God bless the assessor's office. Sometimes I see where they've taken shortcuts. So they kind of I come around a corner and I see what was really there compared to what they kind of approximated.
Yeah, sketched.
And so my job would be to actually
clear
measure
that up,
right,
yeah,
and actually accurately measure it.
So I'm sure in certain situations, if someone's had an addition or they have a custom home, floor plans would be like having blueprints.
Yeah,
right? Would
yeah.
be
So
helpful?
for your to prepare sellers, especially for custom homes. Really only for custom homes. It's really very helpful. In fact, if a home is relatively new and I know that owner is the first owner, then I'll ask for that because it'll certainly save time.
Yeah.
Especially in
especially a larger house.
yeah, and then
I
just
would imagine.
sit down at the dining room table and take those measurements off and then still spot check them.
Right.
But it certainly, especially in the summers, keeps you out of the sun while you're
Gives you a place to start.
Yeah.
So do you have, I guess, any tips for sellers that we can give them to how to prepare for an appraisal and things that, like you said, you'd like to be alone first and then ask questions, things like that.
Well, and those are in general, I guess it would be, I think the average seller is more nervous about the process than they need to be. And you guys are dealing with sellers, on purchases, would be to say the appraiser knows that you're likely packing up your house,
Right.
and
That's
there's going to be
usually one of the more
boxes
concern,
everywhere.
yeah.
And to almost anyone that owners or sellers that apologize for housekeeping or packing or what have you, and this is a truism I've seen in 30 years is. The people who apologize for how the state of the house when I see it, they almost never need to have done that. It's not bad at all.
Yeah.
But the opposite is true too. The people who really should apologize, they never say a word.
They're like, this is just the way it is.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Right.
Don't trip over that box.
So that's the first thing is not to, for sellers especially. Don't worry. Appraisers know the process that's going through. The other is, and I don't expect you're going to counsel somebody who wants to lead an appraiser through the house to not do that. And in fact, as I've said, some appraisers may want that. So I would say just follow the appraiser's lead on those things. One of the things, frankly, that I do, and it's both a help for me as well as it helps set up how I like to see the house, is people tend to leave their houses dark until they need to turn a light on. Whereas, if I notice that when I come in, I ask them, could you go ahead of me and turn on the lights in all the major rooms? And then essentially that sets them on something that's helpful for me while I'm getting underway.
So it gives them a task so they don't feel, okay.
And of course, to your point, if you want to prepare them, you could say, be sure to turn on all the lights. Much the way you think you'd want to, if you have a showing, you'd want to show off the house the best you can.
And probably like the pet waste and the things of that sort.
Yeah.
You probably want to just make sure.
Yeah, because we call them occupational hazards. But I've got to take a rear picture at the very least, and that's one of the things. First thing I encounter is before I see their housekeeping, is I see, do you pick up after your dog? So. Ultimately probably doesn't affect the appraisal, but it does affect whether I might track anything through your house when I come inside.
Yeah.
In my past profession, I had to wear boots all the time, and you still have to.
That's right.
Yeah.
Any other tips or anything, or?
No, I think the just make sure that the appraiser can see what's going on inside the house. The advent of people working at home more, I certainly many times now I have to. There's somebody on a conference call, and I understand it. I may have to take a picture with them in the room, and then I blur them out later because they're on a conference call and they're on screen right then.
Not much you can do about that.
No, don't worry about that. But then there's other people that are maybe buying or selling something, online and have inventory in a room and using a bedroom for that. That's fine. unless there's boxes stacked up all the way to the ceiling and I can't see the walls. So I need to see the real estate. So, so just make sure there's a path for the appraiser to even as you're packing, to be able to see the real estate.
So that brings up, what about garages? Because a lot of them, they're packing up and they'll put it in their garage.
Yeah.
Is it okay to have?
Sure,
Okay.
sure. In fact, it's almost easier there
Right.
because it's, there's plenty of garages that don't have, aren't taped and textured and finished, so we can
Work through that.
Work
we can
around
see
it.
that. Yeah, it's a lot less concerned about, because the one thing appraisers are probably wondering in the back of their mind when there's too much stuff piled up is, and maybe the house doesn't seem to be that well taken care of, is, are there holes in the walls? Are there things they're trying to hide?
Yeah.
And the thing I look for is, more than anything else, is when something just is stacked in an odd place, and sometimes there'll be stuff stacked in the middle of a floor, but it's only one little spot. And unless it's very heavy, I'll make a point to move that, and
I can make sure you know what that floor looks like.
Right, and find that there's a hole in the carpet,
Right.
and so, and it's still not a big deal, but don't insult my intelligence by putting that where I'm likely to say, why is that there?
Yeah, that makes
but
sense.
But no, just as long as we can see the property, that's the main thing.
So one thing that a lot of people talk about is price per square foot. But appraisers don't go by price per square foot. So kind of walk us through a little of that.
Yeah, I guess the best example is say the result of our opinion, you take that value and you divide it by the number of square feet, it'll give you $1 per square foot. So we kind of end with $1 per square foot, where it seems like sellers and a lot of times even real estate agents start with $1 per square foot. And so to me, it's like saying, that a Maserati is a car and a Ford is a car. They're both cars, but they could have vastly different quality. And
Ford's better.
Right.
I would agree.
And so,
Less expensive.
right. And I can't tell you how many times I've appraised a Ford house and gotten Maserati, comps, suggested comps for a reconsideration request. So essentially, because we have to justify our opinion and put it in writing and sign our name to it and put our licenses at risk every time we give an opinion. Then what we're going to start is, what are the most similar, not what's the highest, but what's the most similar to the, and so that's similar in interior
Size,
living space,
bedrooms, bathrooms,
everything you can imagine, and if in a reconsideration, if I've missed something, I want to know about that. If there's a better comp, one that's more similar, then I should be using that. But if there's just that one sale in 10 in the neighborhood that everybody how did
house to be like that?
Right. How did
everyone is striving for that?
How did it sell that high? Even as agents, you're
yeah.
wondering, how did it sell that high? You shouldn't expect that an appraiser, if that's the only 1 in 10, that I'm going to be able to hang my hat completely on that, because I have to look at the whole market.
Right.
You have to have support.
Yeah.
Right.
And usually
How
we
many-
kind of find out.
How many comparables do you typically? What's the goal?
The minimum that lenders by and large require, and that's kind of the industry standard, is 3 closed sales.
Okay.
And so you'll never see an appraisal for lending that has less than 3 closed sales. Often you'll see 4 or 5 closed sales and then 1 or 2 listings. So not uncommon to see up to 6 comps, with 4 of those being closed
Okay.
and two listing.
And obviously closed as recently as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Within 3 months or so, or
Yeah, and it's whatever the best you can find, because I also do work in Navajo County, where on acreage. Yeah, and so the best you can find is a lot different proposition than it is in
60
suburban.
or not,
You don't have as many
6
sales.
months to a year.
Right, don't have as many sales. The values don't move as fast, as they're moving in the Maricopa suburban market right now.
Right.
Demographics.
Yeah.
So it leads me to a question. I've always kind of wondered, because when I do CMA, I mean, we pull up active sales or not really coming soons. And I just kind of like, an active one doesn't, all it tells me is what these people are thinking, but it's like you had said earlier on, it's what the house sells for really is what the market is. So why would you put active ones in there?
Yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah, and it's a great question, and it's kind of this last 6 months to a year, with the way the market's taken off,
Yeah.
where the theory is that actives and pendings, where an appraiser only knows the list price, they don't know what it's under contract for.
Right.
That those are intended to form the upper bounds of value. That it's one of those. Well, it's not worth any more than that, or else.
Foresee.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Now that's been turned on its head a little bit this last 6 months to a year, where things are getting outbid, and when we're aware of that too, and so.
Well, and then sometimes there's ones that are active that are on there longer, and it's because they're really trying to get that high price.
Right. And the total days on market is one of the things that we
You have to
look at
analyze, yeah.
too.
You have to
If
analyze
if it's under contract after 5 days, that's a whole lot different than under contract after 90 days.
Okay.
But is that idea to help understand what's in normal circumstances, what's the top of the market for that neighborhood, and it's served that purpose well. And I think it's also showed us in this last 6 months, it seems like things are starting to where asking prices have gone up so much that they're beginning to have some I've seen more discounts when it finally goes under contract. Not in all cases. Some cases you're still getting some things bid up, but it is intended as that kind of the top of the market.
Okay.
See what that's all about.
Yeah.
Cool.
Any other questions?
No,
Ladies?
that's been great. I think this has been a wealth of knowledge. I mean, like, this has been awesome.
It's so interesting,
Yeah.
the perspective,
Right.
to have your perspective, to, see how that differs from what,
Because we do
I
it
had
day
in
to
my
day
head.
on our side, but to see how you guys
Yeah.
think and process is very interesting. So thank you for all this.
Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Wes, thanks for
So
coming.
cool.
It's good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Make sure that you check out our teamberry.com for a list of items to do before an appraisal, and check out our next video, number 25, where we're going to talk about some of
going
the points.
deep.
We're going to dive deep. And
Give some more tips and tricks.
If you found this helpful, please like, share, or hit subscribe. And always remember to choose a very good team. Thanks.
right.
Choose pick.
Thanks.
We'll take it however it comes.
Very good team. Beer with a Y.